I mean, what has been your impression of it as you've started writing stories in this world?
I like that the corruption basically takes over your mind. It's probably a lot like media in that respect.
Like media. That's awesome. Soul-sucking media.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Forged in Aeternum, the show where we talk about everything New World. Today, we're going to talk about the enemy families and some of the lore of Aeternum, joined by Aaron, our lore master, and our awesome writer, Divya. And indeed, I think we'll kick off, Divya, just like by talking. You're of the three of us, you're the newest to the team. So curious as you've come on board, what aspects of the lore have you been most intrigued by, interested in, what are you most excited about?
So there are two aspects which I'm most interested in. The first one is to do with an enemy family called the Lost. And this is because Aeternum is such a desolate place, and you keep dying only to be reborn in the same pathetic misery of your life, to the extent that you finally lose your soul. And it just seems so true to real life that I really enjoy interacting with the Lost, because I'm like, if I'm not having fun every moment of my life, I could one day turn into you. So that's why I really like the Lost. It's an aspect of the lore that I really enjoy. And the second aspect is the fact that people from all over the world, they come onto this island, and it's like they've interacted with each other and they somehow magically know English. And the reason I like this is because it shows that no matter what your caste, your creed, your race, your gender, you can come together to survive impossible odds. And I think that's the need of the hour. So I really enjoy that our game shows this. Now I will ask these guys how they came up with such amazing lore.
A little depressing there. Well, no, you've added a bunch to it since you've gotten here. I mean, the Lost are a depressing subject. We have a lot of. I mean, the dynamic between the enemy families is one of the things that interests me the most. And the Lost being this group that's lost their souls. But then we have the corrupted. We have ancient guardians. We have the angry earth. Aaron, what is your jam, man?
Just a brief little background here. So when I was brought into the project, I'd worked with Rob before, and we had a great working relationship. When I found out he was working on New World, we started talking. He's like, man, I could use you on this project. It's going to be lots of cool stuff. So I came in and started reading everything that I could about New World, about the lore, about the enemy families. And then together with Rob, we just sat down and created this immense lore Bible of the history, how it all started, what happened. I mean, I'll answer your question about Lost, but let me jump to Ancients first of all. So more than anything, when that was presented to me, I was like, okay, the Ancients, who are they? What are they? Why have they created this island? What's their purpose? What are they doing? What happened to make them disappear? They've left all these ruins and all this mystery and all this magic. What occurred? So we wrote this elaborate, long history stretching over thousands of years, and they basically became the victims of their own hubris. Their experiments and their dealings with humanity unleashed the corruption. This entity from another dimension that came in, started corrupting everything, destroying everything, and even some of the ancients themselves became corrupted.
Well, there's some debate here, though, because we've gotten into it as a group. Like, did the corruption come when the ancients started teaching humans how to use all these magics and powers, on Aeternum?
Yep.
And then the humans were the ones who invited corruption, or was it the ancients?
Yeah.
And I think that's something,
No, I love it, and I love the ambiguity of it. I think the humans, to some extent, there were children who were given a box of matches. And once they started trying to do whatever they could do with this power, then yes, calamity ensued. But in many ways, they were encouraged by the ancients. The ancients were directing them to do these things, teaching them how to do all this stuff. So there's a big conflict. The ancients go to war with each other, and essentially they disappeared. And there's some mysteries there we want the players we will eventually divulge who they are, where they came from, what they want, how they landed here. how they started interacting with humanity. Such great things that we want to explore there and for the players to discover. But corruption, as Rob mentioned in another segment, an entity from another dimension. It came in and it's as close to a Lovecraftian entity as we have. This thing, this insidious evil, it's like a virus that gets into your system, but it's sentient, it's aware, it wants something as well. And very clearly it wants to spread more and more and more and more. So far it's been contained to Eternum, but it wants to get out.
But of course, there's characters on Eternum, and I think even within, as we've talked about the world and the metaphysics of the world, it can also be interpreted that corruption is very much what happens when the human ego runs amok, right? It's what it's the evil that we allow in. It's the evil inherent to mankind. It's the damnation, if you will, that is our lot in life because of the way we are. And certainly, there's people who believe that. I think that we think of it more complex, and we think of like it as a force unto itself. But what has been your impression of it as you've started writing stories in this world?
I like that the corruption basically takes over your mind. It's probably a lot like media in that respect.
Like media. That's awesome.
Soul-sucking media.
Yeah. But there are some really interesting characters like Isabella and Thorpe. And even in the trailer, when the person just explodes in red and like kills, attacks the player, that's a brilliant moment. I would like to ask you guys, which enemy faction is your favorite and why?
I'll go. I would say, actually, I like the Lost lot. I like them all. But the Angry Earth to me are like the coolest faction of all groups. And part of it is because of the nuance of their backstory. Like where we talk about, okay, the ancients came to the island and, they were trying to give humans eternal life and all this stuff went awry, corruption came in. Their experiments into trying to give humans eternal life is part of what gave rise to the Lost. The Angry Earth, though, Aaron mentioned the ancient civil war when the ancients fought amongst themselves. The Angry Earth were actually born when one group of the ancients sacrificed themselves to defeat another, and the Angry Earth sort of grew out of the bones of those dead ancients. And that's, to me, what I love about them is that sense that they are something that was born out of this conflict, as opposed to sort of this primal entity, like we talk about corruption coming from another place. Yeah. And of course, I love that dualistic nature where we kind of want to be sympathetic to the Angry Earth because they're natural beings and they stand up for nature and they support what the natural world is. But at the same time, they're brutal and they're vicious and what motivates the Angry Earth now is not the spirit of sacrifice. It's the spirit of vengeance for that sacrifice. Yeah. And I think that's the cool thing. And can they be redeemed? I think there's parts of the game where it seems like maybe they can, and maybe that's something we're going to explore as we go forward.
Lovely.
Yeah. Now, if the corruption is the virus, the Angry Earth are the antibodies. That is the response of the island from this sacrifice to raise up this force, this army, to fight against corruption, because the ancients were losing that war. And so, the Angry Earth show up. But now, like antibodies, they don't distinguish. If it's a foreign invader, they attack it. They don't care. They don't say, well, that foreign invader's okay, but that one we don't like. Nope, foreign invader, destroy it. Foreign invader, destroy it. And humans, unfortunately, are very much foreign invaders on their island. So a lot of times the Angry Earth have turned against humanity.
So humans are the virus?
Wouldn't you consider humans a virus? I certainly would.
To the Angry Earth they are, right?
Yes.
Because the Angry Earth are there to defend this idea of the natural order that no longer even exists.
Yeah.
Right? So humans, and one of the things that Adiana talks about several times in the game is how corruption comes back over and over again across the centuries. And every time it's because humans start flirting with powers beyond their control. Yeah. And so she really blames the human ego is the source of all corruption, and that's how she seeks to defeat corruption.
Yeah.
So
humans are very susceptible to corruption, and corruption knows that. See, corruption is not, it promises you things, right? Corruption can be seductive. Do you want power, glory, fame, riches? Corruption whispers to you and says, I'll give you that.
Is it your favorite enemy?
The corruption? Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm a big Lovecraft fan. And so the fact that there is a Lovecraftian entity, and we've only gotten a glimpse, right? We're seeing what corruption looks like as manifested on Eternum. Their dimension is hellish and horrific beyond comprehension. Where they come from is even worse. We're only seeing a tiny glimmer of what that is like. So imagine if that spread all over the world. And that's what the ancients try to stop, the good ancients. The corrupted ancients wanted to use the power of corruption. They were being whispered the same things. They wanted power, and corruption promised power. So they said, okay. And other ancients said, no, that's not so much okay.
Well, they thought they were the good guys.
Yes, they did. They did.
Because the ancients who embraced corruption said, like, look, like we've been experimenting with trying to make this world a better place. We've been experimenting with trying to give humans more power and immortality, and we need to use every power at our disposal.
Yeah.
This corruption that's shown up, like this might actually be a boon. We need to learn to master it. We need to learn to work with it. Yeah. So I think they had a fair motivation for embracing
I
it.
would say their reasons, which is as true of a lot of people, their motivations might have been good, but the steps they took to get to their goal was not worth it. And so they fell as a result of it. But I love the ancients too, by the way. We're going to reveal a lot about the ancients. And once players find out more about the ancients, I think they're gonna love it. They're a very complex set of beings. They have factions. They fight with each other. They agree with each other. They ally with each other. All that kind of thing.
We shouldn't discount the loss, because I think in our, as we talk about the future of the game and like the metaphysical conflicts of Eternum, the lost come up often because the lost are immune to corruption because they had no soul. Corruption needs a soul to feed on in order to claim someone. And so the lost are in this strange place of immunity. They're also another group, and in a sense like the Angry Earth, in that they sort of came about incidentally because of the ancients' experiments. And we think about like, well, the lost are, they've lost their soul, they've lost their purpose. They're kind of, a lot of them are frankly zombies. Some of them have more sense of purpose. But what would happen if they all looked up at the same time and started marching to the same beat and united? They would be a force perhaps greater than corruption or anything else.
And by the way, that is a little tantalizing hint for our players. There are powers outside of all of this. There are factors and forces and powers that are acting behind the scenes that will eventually make themselves known. And so, yeah.
So if I'm getting this correctly, then the ancients are the masterminds. The corrupted are viruses, and the angry earth are a retaliation to the corruption, which is the virus.
Mm-hmm. And the lost are a side effect.
Yes.
And the lost are a side effect.
You could look at it that way. That's simplifying.
It is simplifying.
But it's fair. I think
but yeah, the ancients, when they created the ancient guardians, right? All the skeletons that are marching around, they wanted a race of immortal soldiers that would protect them and fight the corruption. So again, they started out with high ideals. Well, we'll create a race of pure warriors that will defend us and defend the island and fight corruption. But things didn't go quite as they had planned. And so the result of it was, because their experiments were imperfect and because they pushed too much, they created the lost, essentially, as a byproduct. So now humans can become these soulless husks. Yes, they're immune to corruption, but they're these soulless husks that haunt the island, like ghosts and wraiths and things like that.
Well, another important way to think about it too is that, the ancients were messing with the fundamental laws of nature. They're trying to give humans eternal life. And that's not the way that humans are designed. As we talk about a lot of times, the reason humans who've been on the island a long time go mad, suffer from aeon madness, is because, the human brain is not capable of remembering things for 1,000 years and encoding that many experiences and processing them. They broke the laws of nature to some extent in what they did, and that's going to have consequences that are going to reverberate throughout the game. It's really, and we've talked about this since the beginning, that is one of the fundamental questions of Eternum is, what is the cost of eternal life? Is this eternal life? Is this eternal damnation? Is this heaven? Is this hell? Is this really a blessing or a curse?
And from my opinion, Eternum, it's a curse. Eternum is a dark place, a nightmarish place that it seems like heaven, but it's actually hell. You're a ghost that's there forever. That's damnation. So yeah.
And do you see any crossovers happening between, let's say, the corrupted and the ancients?
Definitely, as we mentioned, there's back in the times when corruption first appeared, there were ancients who embraced it. They sought to harness it. They sought to use it. They became corrupted. Now, they didn't become corrupted exactly the way a human would become corrupted, but they certainly fell under corruption's influence. And certainly there's going to come a time where you're going to see some of that come back to haunt
Oh, I
us.
can't
and-
wait. We're going to explore all of
And
that.
how do these enemies think of like the different genders?
Wow, that's a great question.
Well, I think the corruption doesn't care, right? The corruption is an equal opportunity corrupter. Men, women, it doesn't matter to them. They all must embrace corruption. They all must push that agenda that the corruption has to spread. So I think to them, to corruption, it really doesn't matter. I don't even know that it really mattered to the ancients
I'm not
as
sure
well.
it matters to anyone.
Yeah,
like, on
the
a-
ancients.
I think one of the beautiful things about our world is it's it's multicultural. Like we have if you look at the outfits in our game, like we don't play to sort of these very strong gender identities. We try to make sure that all characters of cultures, genders, ethnicities, whatever, they all have equal footing on Eternum, and that's kind of the way the world works.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think one thing which I like a lot though is that the Lost get represented as in different costumes. So some of them have long hair, some of them have like dresses compared to like others who have like pants. I do enjoy that seeing that variety in the Lost, which I'd like to see more of that in the Ancients as well, because corrupted just makes everything red, but the Ancient Guardians, there's so much space over there.
Well, and it sounds like you're picking up on the corrupted. They often have crew cuts because they're all very, often our most straight-laced characters who are humans before they became corrupted fall to corruption. Like Isabella, she was very devout, right? A lot of characters who have very rigid belief systems are actually more prone to corruption.
Why?
I think it's because once they go over, they can commit, right? They can stick to something. Like whereas people who have an open mind, consider a lot of options, like they probably don't get pinned down as easily. Whereas corruption grabs you, and then once it has you, can you wrestle away from that grip or not?
Is corruption like a cult?
Certainly, for some people it is, and I think some people have even joined it like that. I think not everybody has been sort of tempted by corruption. Some of them have willingly accepted it as a path to power, like even gone in search of it.
But the reason you see more of, I guess, what you would consider traditionally masculine is because the corrupted wants soldiers. Corruption wants warriors. And so when there's forces that are preparing for war and it sweeps in and takes over, it wants the biggest, strongest, meanest individuals to add to its army. So that's why there are corrupted that are not like that. But for the most part, the corrupted is targeting things like, oh, there's a big army over there, I'm going to corrupt them. Oh, look, there's some big guys over there, I'm going to corrupt them.
Does corruption
It is sentient. It is sentient.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Is it intellectual?
Does it have? Oh yeah. I mean, certainly. I mean, where the effect of becoming lost is something that happens as a force of nature, but corruption is, it's seeking things. It's got an agenda that it's pushing. And I just wanted to pause. Even though it may lean towards that sort of masculine energy and these strong warrior types, note that it chooses Isabella as its avatar during our time period.
But Isabella is very strong. The strong-willed also attract corruption. If you want something very desperately and it drives you, that sparks corruption's interest. It wants you because it wants that will, that drive, and that not necessarily is not defined by any kind of physical appearance. It's inner strength. It's the strength of your spirit.
So
and that's what it
emotional
wants.
strength is also detected.
Absolutely.
So then it should go for a lot more
emotional
women.
potency. Like, I mean, when we first were, there was a point where we were talking about how, some people on the island, as you said, if you are despairing and you die on the island, you often come back as a lost. If you're furious, angry, vengeful, and you die, you come back as a corrupted. Sometimes it's because you're in the vicinity of corruption. Like it's not a hard and fast rule exactly how it works.
Yeah.
But like emotion is very much a part of it.
And when players, die and respawn, is there a chance sometime in the future they may be able to turn into enemies?
Maybe.
There's a chance that they're losing their soul, little tiny pieces of their soul every time they die and respawn.
It has not escaped discussion that, could players manifest some elements of lost or some elements of corruption? I have heard something like that.
Yeah, it seems like the players might want to know more about the enemy families and then maybe even to get involved in them themselves.
Yeah.
So I guess that's our community question for today is, what enemy family would you like to know more about? We'd be happy to elaborate here if we haven't said enough already.
Yeah, if there was an enemy family that players could ally themselves to or have manifest elements of, who would it be? what enemy family would you like to associate yourself with? The Angry Earth, Corruption, or the Lost?
That might need to be a poll.
Yo, a poll, yeah.
I feel we're going to get very different
Let's do
takes
it.
on that
Let's
one.
do it.
Let's do it.
Yeah, and so everybody, thanks for watching. And if you'd like to see more of this, subscribe. Let us know in the comments. We would always love to come back and talk more about lore and story. So we're here. Thanks.
See you in Eternum.
Another real hot topic in game development that New Worlds isn't immune to is when is it good enough? At some point, you really have to push things out by certain deadlines, otherwise you're never really going to get something out.